first thing on well, actually, before we start the agenda, we have a change to the agenda. We will not have the swearing in. Excuse me. We will not have the swearing in of Bernie Martinez, so that's item number 3. And we will not have a report from California Highway Patrol. That's item number 7. I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda. Okay, is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll proceed with the roll call. Rafael Alvendano.
Present.
Beatriz Cedillo.
Present.
Jenny Corral, leave of absence. Nereida Guzman, leave of absence. Laura Kaplan.
I'm here.
Dale Miller.
Here.
John Schott.
Here?
And S.B. Vasquez. Oh, you just
Present,
walked
I'm
in. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we start our meetings with public comment, and I only have 2 requests for public comment. Any others? No. Okay.
Do I need to fill out? Do I need to fill out one of those papers?
To make a comment? No. No, you don't need to. Do you want to, you're making a public comment?
I'm making a public.
Okay, well then let's go ahead. What, you want to get up on the, no, you can stay right there. You have a microphone.
I was asked from one of the neighbors on 3rd Avenue that there's 2 residences on 3rd Avenue. One is 380 and the other one is 324. That they live about 10 to 15 people in that in a single house, one on each one of the houses, and they do have about 10 to 12 cars. So,
The address again?
380 3rd Avenue, and the other one is 324.
3rd Avenue. And SB, was this brought to your attention because of the,
Because of the
The car-
traffic,
the
the cars,
cars.
there's no parking, and they go park on the other neighborhood. And that's my comment.
okay, all right, thank you. Okay, I have 2 slips from Janet Davis, so that means, Janet, if you can come up to the podium, please. And, no, that's fine.
Only one
That's
of my
fine.
comments is...
So you have one to speak to CSA
Yeah.
8, and the second one on the parking commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
And so you get 4 minutes. Well,
Oh,
let's
no.
do one at a time.
No, CSA is it's on the agenda, so I'm only talking about parking, which is public
I
comment.
see, very good. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, go ahead.
So there's an ordinance that says you can't have commercial vehicles parking in residential areas. I keep complaining about this, and nothing happens. It's the same vehicles. Tonight I passed a huge landscaping truck and trailer on the corner of Buckingham and Devonshire on Devonshire. Westmoreland, there's the same trucks parked there night after night. There's a roofing truck and a cement worker's truck. And I can thoroughly identify with Esperanza. There's houses on Devonshire that one of them has 15 cars, another one had 9 cars, and this is a problem with code compliance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no other public comments? No. Okay, supervisors report.
Hello, Council. Irving Torres, Legislative Aide for Office of Supervisor Warren Slocum. I'll be making the reports for tonight. On Saturday, May 10th, along with Rafael Avendano and Lori Pastorelli from the San Mateo County Commute Alternatives Program, hosted a North Fair Oaks bike rodeo, and that was actually held here at the Fair Oaks Community Center. So it was just an opportunity for kids to learn about safety. We gave away kind of lights for them as well as helmets, and we had a chance to kind of fix up some bikes as well. And then thanks to the Sheriff's Office as well as the California Highway Patrol for providing the services and the materials needed to make this a successful event. One special thing that happened was we gave away a free bike to a young kid that never had a bike, so it was an opportunity for him to kind of just learn how to ride a bike, and so it was a very fun-filled event. So thank you so much to the Sheriff's Department, California Highway Patrol, Lori Pastorelli, and Rafael Avendano. On this past Saturday, May 17th, we had, there was a OYE conference, a Latino youth conference that was here at the Fair Oaks Community Center. There was about 150 youths from all over Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, ages 12 to 22 that came out and kind of just learned about leaderships and skills. So there was like numerous workshops that involved like battle chefs, so learning how to make like nutritious foods, graffiti, how to learn to be an artist, also kind of mother storytelling, which I thought was a very powerful workshop as well. So mothers to kind of be open and share their stories, and so it was a fun-filled event at the OYE conference. And then I just wanted to actually just mention that the Office of Supervisor Adrian Tissier is going to have the 10th Annual Disaster Preparedness Day, as I've actually left some flyers back here. And so that's going to be on Saturday, June 7th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the San Mateo County Event Center. And that's just basically just learning about first aid, police, learn how to put together a disaster plan, emergency kit. I know there was mention last time at the North Fair Oaks Community Council about like OES services and how you sign up to get on your phone. So they'll also talk about that on that day as well. And then for more information, you can actually contact the Office of Emergency Services, 650-363-4790. Or the Office of Supervisor Adrian Tissier, 650-363-4572. And then a couple of things left. So this year, San Mateo County is launching the Summer Learning Program, a revision summer library reading program that combines learning, enrichment activities, and lunch for kids. It's made possible by a combination of funding sources, a state library grant, and a local Measure A sales tax dollars. 6 libraries from Peninsula Library System will pilot the program. Those sites include South San Francisco, San Bruno, Half Moon Bay, Fair Oaks, Atherton, and East Palo Alto. So thanks to the leaders in each of the libraries and our county librarian, Anne-Marie Despain, for making this work for our kids. And then this past Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors created an Office of Sustainability that will work under the direction of the County Manager's Office. The Office of Sustainability will oversee and coordinate county-wide stormwater initiatives and centralized sustainability efforts. Jim Agamar, the county's current Director of Planning and Building, has been tapped to launch this initiative that will start on July 1st. And then last but not least, next Saturday, May 31st, we are going to be having our BC Keeping It Clean, so the North Fair Oaks cleanup event. It's going to be from 9 to noon. It's going to be held at the Fair Oaks Community Center, and so last year we had like more than 300 volunteers that came out. We collected more than 4,000 pounds of garbage, and so it's going to be a fun-filled event. We're always in need of volunteers, so if those of you who have not signed up, if you can, just go online to nfoforward.org. You can just click the top big picture. That's how you can sign up for a volunteer, and then, or you can just contact me for more information. So that's 650-363-4801. Yeah, I hope to see you there. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, but you did leave something out that at the OYE conference this past Saturday, you were one of the 2 keynote speakers.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say that you were great. You gave a really inspirational presentation to the kids. And I'm trying to remember the other person. What's her?
Erica Fernandez.
Fernandez,
Yeah.
right. So both speakers were excellent. I had an opportunity to volunteer and hang out and listen, so you kind of left that out. So I just wanted to give you some props on that.
Well, thank you, Linda.
And on the Be Clean thing, are you providing the gloves and all that?
Yeah, we'll provide all the
What-
materials as well as community service hours for students who are in need of that.
Uh-huh.
And then we're also going to be providing lunch as well, and then breakfast
that's
too,
great.
as
Okay.
well. So snacks in the morning session, but we will be offering lunch after the event.
Okay, and you still need more volunteers?
We're always in need of volunteers,
Okay.
so please feel free to just continue spreading the word out. So I've been going to the schools, and I'm going to be going to the churches this weekend to just keep on spreading the word.
Does, do any council members have any questions for Irving? John?
Yeah.
Irving, how many people showed up at the bike event? Sorry.
I believe it was between, and Raphael, you can probably chime in on this, maybe between 50 people, 50 plus, I don't know.
We fixed around 70 bikes. So some people actually didn't do the technical piece of the rodeo, but we had adults come get their bikes fixed that day. So that was really neat to see that people in the community just came and they're like, what do I do with my bike? And we had to tell them that their bike isn't rideable, but we can support them at Siena Youth Center through giving them a part. The sheriff's department is really courteous to us in donating bikes to us, so we're willing to give parts if they need them, for the community. So it was good for them to know that they have a resource at Siena Youth Center for them to get a part that can cost them, $50 or $100, and it was given to us. So that was really cool for them to get awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
I would ask that the comments that were made by Councilwoman Vasquez go back to Supervisor Slocum's
Yeah.
office. And if there can be a preliminary check on what's going on at 380 3rd Avenue and 324 3rd Avenue
Okay.
in regards to the violation of code enforcement or whatever the situation is. And
Yeah.
then also specifically the Buckingham and Devonshire? Yeah, so if that can, I'd like that to go back to your office and start some investigation on that.
Yeah, we'll do it, and
Okay.
then we'll bring in for the next month's report. We'll keep you updated on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, council member reports. This is an opportunity for council members to give some reports on whatever.
I got one.
Do you have anything? Well, you
Go ahead.
reported on the bike rodeo.
Yeah, I got something else to
Okay.
I just want to make sure the date's right.
Okay.
On Friday, June 6th, I want to invite everyone from the community to come out to see the new unveiling of the Siena Youth Center mural. We have a mural that I haven't told many people about that was just painted, I would say 3 weeks ago at Siena Youth Center. It was, most of it, I would say 70% of it was done by the youth. So I invite you all to come see this new unveiling of our new mural on June 6th, Friday, June 6th at around 6 o'clock. Carpooling and biking are strongly encouraged because of parking in our area. So please be courteous of that. So that is one of the announcements I want to give. And I also want to just say thank you to the county for allowing us to do the bike rodeo and for allowing me to take lead on that, because I'm very passionate about biking in NFO and just sharing the awareness to all the youth. It was really cool to see the sheriffs and the California Highway Patrol working with the kids, and the kids talking to the sheriffs in a cool way, and them just getting along with different people in county I thought that was really, really neat. And also the resources shared. I mean, kids got bike locks. Kids learned how to ride safely. They got a helmet. I mean, a helmet is expensive for many of the families living in this area. So I just want to just give a thank you to the county for that. And I hope that they look into this for next year, because I have bigger and better plans for it to be bigger. We also had a very a famous mountain biker come and guest speak for us on Saturday, which is awesome. Rick Sutton came out. He's a mountain bike pioneer, so he's really interested in working with our community because he's from the community. So yeah, I think a new movement's coming. So that's my announcement.
All right, okay. Any other comments? I think I will comment on that the council had that study session on, what was it? May 15th. And I thought, overall, it was a very good study session in that a lot of information was given and a lot of questions were answered, I think. And I just wanted to comment that I think, excuse me, about the, it was regarding the Waverly Apartments, proposed Waverly Apartments, 16-unit apartment building for severely mentally ill residents. And it was just a very good study session in that I think instead of people talking a lot about just the fear of being in close proximity to someone who's mentally ill, the conversation and discussion kind of turned around to issues around traffic and parking. So, which tells me I think a lot of people's questions were answered and some of their fears were kind of, I don't know, I think it just was, some of their fears were maybe lessened by all the information and education that they've gotten over the last couple of months with all the community meetings. So I just saw a bit of a change. So the upshot on it was that there are still issues around traffic and parking, and there's going to be some follow-up meetings with Public Works in regards to that, in making sure that the issues that the neighborhood has about that are also answered, and there's a satisfaction plan of action to take care of what those problems look like. So anyway, that's my
Yeah,
report
just
back.
to
I know some of you
piggyback.
all were there also.
I want to piggyback off of the three major concerns that they mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The three major concerns that they mentioned and that we documented as a group, as a team, were parking and traffic, the mental health aspect of the project, and the safety of the project. So those are things that we're going to be looking into as a group, you know, come time where we have to make decisions as a team. So for those people who came out, we really appreciate that they came out and voiced their opinion, because it's important, and then we enjoy when people are here. It's much more fun.
And one other point I forgot to mention, a very, very important point. Mental Health Association has offered the community a chance to participate in the screening process of the applicants, which is kind of unheard of. So I think it's like setting a real precedent for mental health, that when they are coming into neighborhoods and communities, that they get a really good input and participation back from the neighborhood. So not only is there an invitation to participate on the screening, but also possibly set up some type of a neighborhood advisory component that will actually stay. So just to keep the communication going between the Mental Health Association and that particular neighborhood. So I think that's real progress in my mind. That's really good progress. And I think, did you have anything to add, Laura? No? Okay, all right.
I think through it too, a lot of them got a lot of resources
Yeah.
that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
We mentioned a lot of the NFL Forward website to a lot of these residents that they knew nothing about, and now they have it as a resource. So we urge them to go on get informed and share their opinions, and told them that there's numbers they can call. So it's really good to have a resource like the one we have now, because we can just say, hey, why don't you go on this, you know? And we can give them a wristband, the green one, right?
Oh, that's right.
So it's good.
Okay, if there's no other comments from council members, we'll go to the sheriff's report. We have Lieutenant Reed here tonight.
Good afternoon, council members. Good evening, sorry. Got kind of two reports tonight, the regular sheriff's report, and then later at the end of the agenda, Mr. Velarde is going to give a quick rundown on our youth programs and how the sheriff's office works to keep the youth of the North Fair Oaks area out of gangs, and everything we have on that. That'll be Mr. Velarde's report at the end of the agenda. Quickly, the stats for the North Fair Oaks area. In April was actually a quiet month in the North Fair Oaks area. We had a total of 31 arrests, 13 felony arrests, 18 misdemeanor arrests. We issued 945 citations. That includes 857 parking citations. I'll break those down in a minute. 3 assaults, 4 burglaries, or total of 7 burglaries, auto and residential combined. Those are the lowest numbers we've had in quite some time. I think I credit that a little bit to an arrest we made, and then also there was a crew arrested in Santa Clara County that have been running some burglaries as well. So I think we may have kind of taken the head off the monster for a bit on that. And like I said, just it was a relatively quiet month arrest-wise or crime-wise. Parking tickets, I know it's always an issue. We issued, as I said, 857 parking citations in the month of April. 464 of those were for street sweeping tickets. You asked about that last month. That breaks down to about 33 tickets written each street sweeping day. The way that it works out, there's 14 street sweeping days in the North Fair Oaks area. Just some numbers, just an idea. We're writing roughly 33 tickets on street sweeping days in the North Fair Oaks area, as well as almost 50 fire hydrant tickets, 126 tickets on Middlefield Road, violating the 2-hour parking limit on Middlefield, 126 tickets written there.
Can you repeat? I'm sorry. So there's 14 street sweeping days.
According to my handy,
And then you said 30.
North Fair Oaks street sweeping routes, which I got off the San Mateo County website
Okay.
just this day, it works out to 14 days of actual street sweeping
Okay.
that go in the North Fair Oaks area. You know, to the second and fourth week on Tuesday in one area, and it works out through that. I counted up to 14 days of street sweeping in the North Fair Oaks area. In that 14 days, we wrote 464 citations for being parked on the street when they're street sweeping. So 30, and that breaks down to about 33 a day.
Oh, got it.
Is that clearer?
Yes.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
was going pretty quick there. Again, 48 for blocking fire hydrants, 28 for parking on a sidewalk, 28 for parking in a crosswalk, and just a smattering of 13 vehicle parked for sale, that kind of thing. So that's the stats for the North Fair Oaks. Does the council have any questions regarding those statistics or anything that I covered?
We just have a request from a group that came and saw us last week. They requested that on Waverly, there's major speeding going on that they wanted us to pass on to the sheriffs.
Okay.
So that's the only request that I remember, right? Was that right?
Speeding on Waverly?
Yeah. Remember from last week on the study session, they were reporting that the stop sign after they just.
Oh, that's just jumping the stop sign.
Yeah.
You
Speeding,
can't
so we're
speed in that
speeding through the stop
neighborhood.
sign. That's
I mean,
a
it's
multiple
like
crime thing. We can get on that.
Small.
They just told us to tell you.
Yeah, we'll work
Okay,
it.
I'm
I'll get
sorry.
that, and I'll
I'm trying to
also
remember
shoot a
that.
message to Captain Masterich and the CHP, and I'm sure he'll help us out as well.
Just though, in regards to the Waverly Street apartment, the project, the sheriff's department, this is just my observation, the sheriff's department has been pretty much absent from all of the meetings that we've had. Is there any reason for that, or, okay?
Yeah, no,
Because one of the issues that has come up consistently is about safety and all of that type of thing, but
I mean,
I was
I'd be more
just
than happy to
curious.
attend any of the meetings
Yeah. I was
of them or anything going forward. I'd certainly be more than happy to attend and also run it up my chain of command to let them know that's going on. How much input we could actually have, projecting that kind of thing and engineering it. But I'd be more than happy. As soon as I'll get a hold of somebody and I'll find out when they
Okay,
are, and
all right.
I'll either be there or get somebody to them.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Tiara is saying you could talk to her. She's right behind you.
Very good. Then I found somebody to talk to. Touchdown.
Cheers to a good April month.
Yeah, that was very good.
Yeah.
And the bike rodeo was good, and we were talking a little bit beforehand. Hopefully, we're going to get some more bikes going out to the youth out here and working it out. But cheers to Raphael and his work on that bike rodeo, along with the supervisor's office, and Sergeant Finato's here from our community policing unit. I know that his troops were out there at that bike rodeo. They're going to be there at the cleanup day. They were at the youth conference as well. So he's really running a great job. He's getting our people here in the North Fair Oaks area really involved, and they really enjoy doing it. So we've got a good crew down here.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions.
Very good.
Okay, we have the North Fair Oaks Forward Report. Results of the Community Outreach Middlefield Road redesign meetings, surveys, and next steps.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. We were not exactly sure how to set this up. Hopefully all of you can see. And anybody in the audience who can't see the presentation, I'd invite you to maybe move your chair around, because this is something that the young folks on our team put together, and it's actually quite exciting for us to share with you. So what I'm pleased to be able to do tonight is to share with you a summary of the information that we've gotten from the community regarding the Middlefield Road redesign. And what I'd like to remind the council and all of our attendees here this evening is that Middlefield Road redesign is part of the entire North Fair Oaks Forward program. That's an initiative that has been spearheaded by Supervisor Slocum. We've developed a North Fair Oaks outreach team who are here this evening: Ellie Dahlman, Ashley Quintana, and Pat Brown, also Lilia Desma, who's not here with us this evening, to go out to the community and talk to them about the variety of projects we're working on. So what we're going to be doing tonight is summarizing the information that they have gathered together. First of all, I'd like to remind everyone here this meeting of the scope of the project of the Middlefield Road redesign. We are looking at the area from 5th Avenue to Pacific on Middlefield Road, as illustrated here on the map. In terms of outreach efforts, we've done a variety of things. Ellie and Ashley and Pat and Lilia spent a significant amount of time in the community, and our outreach efforts included a variety of methods of connecting with the neighborhood. One of them was a survey. We had a significant number of people complete our survey. We had raffle tickets that we gave out for folks who did complete the survey, and we had boxes to submit the surveys at a variety of community locations, like the health center, the library, the Sequoia Adult School. We also held preliminary meetings. This is actually a meeting of auto body shop owners. We met with other business owners in the community, and we also had specific meetings, one at the Sienna Center with parents. We also met with the Sequoia Adult School. I think it was 12 or 13 classes. So we connected with a variety of folks in the community. And finally, all of this very sort of specific individual outreach and small group outreach culminated in 2 large community meetings held on the 26th of April and the 29th of April at Garfield School and here at the North Fair Oaks Community Center. So when you put all of these data sources together, when you put all of this outreach together, we connected and got feedback from over 2,100 people in North Fair Oaks. So I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the survey and share some of the summary data from the 1,354 surveys that we received back. 57% of those surveys were completed in Spanish, a very significant percentage. That's over 700. 43% were English. About 200 were completed online, and the rest were turned in by hand or collected by our staff. Some of the interesting data that we learned from, that we gathered from the survey was that the folks that responded, 54% were residents. That's over 731 residents of North Fair Oaks. Some of the, this is not an unduplicated count, so some might be residents, some and workers, some might be residents and property owners or business owners. But I think one of the key facts to note is that although 6% of business owners looks like a small number, that actually, given the number of surveys we received, is 81 business owners, which is a pretty good, it's a fairly representative, actually probably very representative number. Some other demographic data on the survey respondents, the majority were between 31 and 64 years of age, but we also did get some folks both at the younger age groups and at the older end of the age spectrum. Another question we asked the survey respondents was, what was their main source of transportation? How did they get around in North Fair Oaks? The vast majority of folks use their car, use an auto to go up and down or through the North Fair Oaks area, but 10% do in fact use public transit, and that was an important fact to know. And then finally, we asked them how they use Middlefield Road. Do they come here to shop? Do they come here to work? Is it primarily their transportation corridor? So one of the interesting points, that 53% of folks said they shop on Middlefield Road, and that translates into over 700 people who responded to the survey and who are actively using Middlefield Road as their commercial district. So in addition to completing the survey and attending the meeting, we also collected comments from folks, both on the surveys and at the meetings. We jotted down all sorts of things that people told us, their comments and concerns, and they also had the opportunity to write their comments and concerns on large Post-it notes at the community meetings. We estimate that there are over 500, maybe close to 600 or 700 comments that were gathered by our group from all the sources, all the community respondents. What we learned from those comments and some of the community meeting feedback was that there are 4 things that were very important to the folks in North Fair Oaks, and that they wanted everyone who's involved in the Middlefield Road project to consider. Those 4 items were safety, beautification, parking, and congestion. So what we did, we put all of this data, actually it ended up being about 21 pages of single-spaced information. We took the data that we gathered from the survey, we combined all of the comments, all of the feedback we got at the community meeting, and we looked also at what the high-level themes were. And we realized that there were 4 key areas. The first, and those 4 themes were safety, access to the Middlefield Road commercial area, the attractiveness, making it look like a main street, a thriving commercial area, and then finally making it an active and vibrant part of the town, someplace where people want to come and be involved in activities and spend their time. So from these themes, what we were hearing was that people wanted to see improvements in certain areas. And the first area, the area where we had the highest level of comments, regarded safety. And there were 3 areas where they wanted to see safety improvements. The first was for pedestrians. And some of their ideas for improving the safety of pedestrians was more crosswalks or mid-block crosswalks. They also talked about reducing or enforcing speed limits, having lighted signage at crosswalks, and possibly curb bump outs at intersections to create a safe area for folks. And even center islands as you go across the street, because Middlefield Road is quite wide. The second group that was concerned about safety were bicyclists, and then we've received a lot of comments about how to improve safety around creating wide and substantial and well-marked bike lanes. We also got recommendations around making sure that the bike routes were well-marked. Also, there were comments for bicyclists around not having diagonal parking, because it's very difficult for drivers to see a bicyclist behind them if they're backing out of a parking space. There was significant preference among the bicycle folks, or the people who are interested in bicycle safety, in having parallel parking along Middlefield Road. And finally, the third group that was interested, that recommended safety improvements, were drivers, people who use automobiles on Middlefield Road. And some of those improvements included creating turn lanes, creating improved visibility to create better access onto Middlefield Road, and adequate off-street parking. There again were a lot of comments by this group about the desire for parallel parking and potentially some additional traffic lights. So safety was the biggest concern. The next area for improvement was access. How do people get to Middlefield Road, and what can they do with their vehicles and their bikes when they get there? For pedestrians, the largest number of comments related to wider sidewalks, cleaner sidewalks, a more welcoming environment. They also talked about street lights and even pedestrian education to make sure people understood, where they should cross, how they should cross the streets. The next area was bicyclists, and the things that folks said around improving access for bicyclists were to place creative and interesting but very usable bike racks along Middlefield Road. They also, again, talked a lot about wide and very well-marked bike lanes. And finally, the key issue for access for people who were in cars was adequate parking. That was a theme we heard over and over again, the fact that Middlefield Road does not have adequate parking now. Some of the suggestions folks had were to create a parking lot or a parking garage in the Middlefield Road area to serve folks who are coming to this area. More enforcement of time limits, although I think we've heard from Lieutenant Reed that there's been a lot of enforcement going on in that area. People talked about the desire to have handicap parking spaces designated on Middlefield Road. And then finally, there was some discussion, although there was a very mixed opinion, about adding pay parking or meters. Oh, and one very important point that was brought up by the folks at the Sequoia Adult School is they wanted some special consideration for parking for all the people who attend those classes. So that was an important issue. The third area was creating an attractive Main Street in North Fair Oaks. And those comments and suggestions included improving the streetscape, adding things like the wider sidewalks, a lot of greenery, making it a more attractive area to come, adding little parklets. Cleanliness was mentioned in a variety of areas, but particularly in making Main Street attractive, adding more trash containers and making sure that there was continuous and timely cleanup along the street, even potentially creating a business improvement district where business owners or property owners might contribute to some additional or higher level of service for that part of town. And the final area in terms of attractiveness related to zoning and building design. Some of the comments that we heard were about billboards. There was a lot of people felt that they would like to see the billboards removed from the downtown area along Middlefield Road. There was also talk about mixed use, commercial, as new development occurs, possibly in the future, that there would be commercial on the first level and possibly residential on the upper stories of these buildings. So those were the areas where we had recommendations for improvements. And then finally, the fourth area was being active and vibrant community. What you can see from the pictures up here is that people wanted a place that would draw people. They wanted events and activities and maybe a plaza where there could be cultural events or musical performances. Farmers markets, creating an opportunity to have healthy food in the downtown area at a farmers market environment was also something that was suggested. So those were the main themes and the types of things that people wanted to see improved. But one of the things that we were hoping, as the county will be the ones actually implementing or building the improvements to Middlefield Road, was whether or not the community wanted 3 lanes of traffic on Middlefield Road or whether they wanted 4 lanes of traffic. So when we add all of those responses from those 2,100 people that voted, we do not have a clear consensus. What we have is 49% of the folks indicated they wanted 3 lanes, and 41% said 4 lanes, and 10% said they didn't have an opinion. So that means that we don't have a clear recommendation to share with you. And what we have done is develop a series of next steps that will help that will involve additional analysis, additional traffic analysis on the impact of both 3 lanes and 4 lanes by our Public Works Department, both not only along just Middlefield Road, but also on the adjacent streets that feed into Middlefield Road and the neighborhood around it. And then lay out a process where your council will be more involved in this decision making. So what I'd like to do is walk through that process for you now, what the next steps will be. So what this roadmap shows is the series of steps that we're going to take. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these, but I wanted to explain a little bit about the roadmap. The items in light blue are activities with dates that will occur for the council. They're either events that you're hosting or meetings that you will hold. The purple items are at days when the Board of Supervisors are going to be considering this or hearing about Middlefield Road. And the two green areas are ones where we're going to be going back to the community for community meetings, for more community input. So you can see that there are a number of points that your council will be having opportunity to discuss this, the Board of Supervisors will be informed, and the community will also have opportunities to provide additional feedback. So this is today. We're providing you a review of all the information that we've gathered to date. On the 6th of June, at their board meeting, the Board of Supervisors will be hearing the same presentation that we are giving to you tonight. Throughout June, we will be holding a number of additional community meetings with all the folks that we met with before to provide them to share this information with them and get their additional feedback. We have asked them for comments. We want to make sure that they know that we've been listening and that we're taking the comments that they've provided very seriously and explain to them what the next steps in this decision-making process will be. In addition to meeting with business owners and a variety of other groups, we have are scheduled for the City Council meetings to present a similar presentation in Redwood City in July and in Atherton and Menlo Park in late June. We're also going to be reaching out to the school boards. So that's what's going to be happening in June. Then on the 17th of July, we're proposing that your council have a study session focused just on the Middlefield Road redesign. Our Public Works Department has said their traffic analysis will be complete in time to present it to you at a study session. And so that will be your opportunity to hear about the pros and cons from a traffic perspective of both the 3-lane and the 4-lane options. It'll also be an opportunity for you to hear from the community about their concerns and their preferences and their ideas about how the road should be designed. Our thought was then, after you have a study session on the 17th of July, the following week is your July full council meeting. Our thought was that the council could then hold a full community meeting, invite the community to come share with you their comments and their concerns and their thoughts about how the streetscape should be designed for Middlefield Road. And then that would be followed at your next meeting, which will be on the 28th of August. That will be the meeting where we would recommend that you, as a council, make a recommendation on the street design. That recommendation would then be brought back to the community to inform them about what had been done at another community meeting for those who are unable to attend your council meeting on the 23rd of September, and then finally come back to the Board of Supervisors for you to present to them on the 21st of October. So that's the process that will get us to a final design, which involves significant involvement of your council, significant engagement with the community. So what happens after that? Well, we've been working quite extensively with our Public Works Department, and they have told us that after we reach that point where design is finalized, the conceptual design, what we want the street to look like, is finalized, it will take probably up to 3 to 4 years potentially 4 to 5 years to actually build the entire project. And I want to go through the steps that we have to take so you can understand why it's going to take that long. I want to point out that Public Works has assured me that there will be activity going on during that entire time, but it's a very complicated process because it involves a significant number of different partners. Then they have to coordinate all their work. So as soon as the direction is given on the design, the conceptual design for the project, our Public Works Department will start working on the engineering drawings, on the detailed drawings that they must prepare to implement that design. As soon as those engineering drawings are ready, they will be provided to PG&E. because they in turn are going to have to manage the entire undergrounding of the utilities project. Now, that has to happen first, because you only want to dig up the street once. So you've got to put all your utilities underground before you redo the street on top of that. And the reason that it takes a significant amount of time is PG&E has to coordinate the undergrounding with the lighting district to get the electricity to the light poles along the street. They have to coordinate it with the cable company, with all the people who have wires along the street now. They also have to coordinate it with phone lines and all their electric utility lines, and work with every single business to make sure that they have the connectivity for the underground connections. So it does take a significant amount of time. While that undergrounding is going on, our Public Works Department will be preparing the final designs and the bid documents for the repaving and the reconstruction of Middlefield Road, and then they will go out to bid. That process takes about 3 or 4 months because those bids have to be approved by our board, and then finally the reconstruction will be done. So I realize that seems like a long time, but I want to make sure that everybody understands it's a complex process and work will be going on that entire period of time. So that concludes my presentation. We are very excited about moving forward with this project. We see your council is playing a very important part. And the North Forks Forward team and I would be happy to answer any questions you have at this point.
Yes, go ahead.
I thought that I saw the survey. I took the survey, and I was at at least one of the workshops. I thought the way that it was displayed with the different options for the street layout, that was great. That was really helpful to be able to see how it would look with the bike lanes here and the parking here and the different lane configurations. So that was great. What I'm wondering about, though, is the question of, we have talked about that it's going to stop at 5th, which is only, so it leaves part of the downtown Middlefield Road undone, because I understand the undergrounding of utilities already took place in that section from 5th through the avenues south. However, what I'm wondering is, I'm not sure that it was clear to people when they're voting on the 3 lanes versus 2 lanes and the different options, the context of this. I'm not sure it's really clear to people that if they say, for example, 3 lanes, that we're going 3 lanes, then 4 lanes for a couple blocks, then 2 lanes. So it's, I think, a lot more complicated than just saying, gee, do you want Middlefield Road to be this way or this way? Because it's not all of Middlefield Road. If it stops at 5th, it's taking that significant portion of the downtown area and making it, so there's going to be 2 changes within just a few blocks. So I'm sure that the planning and people have looked at that, but I'm not sure that that context was clear to the people voting on it, because to me that seems odd, and I don't know how it's going to work out. I'd love to have more explanation for how those transitions would happen if, for example, it went from 3 to 4 to 2.
That very well may have been the case, and that's why we have developed this additional set of steps to give the community, to both communicate with the community and then give them additional opportunity for input and share with them additional information. So hopefully between now and the end of August, when your council is asked to make a recommendation, we can get those kinds of questions answered.
There was one other thing, and that was the workshop I attended. A suggestion came up that wasn't one of the options, and I thought, and several people I think thought, it was a great option. So I'm hoping that one can be included, which is, if we do look at options, which was the option of having the median strip down the center with trees and having the bike lane in that, so that it was safer, farther away from cars, and so you have both the trees and the safety of the bikes. Anyway, I'm sure there are reasons for and against, but it was an option that came up. There was quite a bit of discussion, and I thought it would be nice to see that one included, since we are going to be having further discussion.
Well, those are the kinds of things that our traffic engineers and actually our police folks, because there may or may not be rules around how things can be set up, will be able to answer as we go forward with the process.
Is there any reason why that arrow is going towards 5th? Does that signify anything?
No.
So, okay. No, I thought, okay, so the start point is not up there near Pacific. That's just the boundary.
You're the first group who's seen this presentation, so we'll probably take that arrow off.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions?
Only that, are we going to get a copy of what you just presented? Okay, thank you.
Right.
I was trying to take some notes here.
Yeah, and all the as the summary of all this information, in addition to providing it to your council, will be posted on the North Fair Oaks Forward website.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 5 years, huh? That's the projected timeline?
Well, you know, I have talked to Public Works, and they don't want to promise something they can't deliver. And their concern is that if they were completely controlling the project, then they would feel more comfortable giving a less conservative estimate. But because they're reliant on so many other agencies, PG&E and all the folks that they have to work with, that's the outside number. I mean, I think it'll probably be 3 to 4, but it's not going to be right away.
Yeah, actually, I thought 5 was, I thought it was going to be more than 5.
Oh, good.
I mean, for all the extensive work that's going to happen, and I would want to get really detailed information. I know that's down the line about the phase, each phase, and what that's. And I know that's down the line. It's
no, but
it's premature right now to ask that.
No, but those are notes that we've taken. We recognize that's very important to work with the businesses and also let the community know what's going to be happening, and that's part of that whole design and engineering process, because Public Works will be managing all of that. Other questions? Yes.
Yes, Peggy, while I followed the details of the timeline, what I didn't see is when in that process we can expect more detailed drawings, not full, I know full construction drawings are further down, but more fleshed out versions of whatever number of competing options there may be. Do you have a date when you expect to see that?
Well, we first have to get clarification. I mean, we've got graphic representations of a variety of options, and of the options, of the 6 options we presented, there were 3 that got the most votes, and actually 2 that were the preferred ones. And so we have a sense of what the community wants. They definitely want bike lanes. They want parallel parking. They want wider sidewalks. The question really remains as to how wide is the street going to be? How are we going to divvy up the space for the traffic? So at this point, what I've heard from Public Works is that they need to get that information before they can go to the next level of detailed drawings, and that's what they'll start in November.
The detailed drawings will start in November.
Right. Are you suggesting you want to see more detailed?
Well, no. Well, I think, for example, I think it's likely that the competing options will have different either losses or gains in net parking spots. And I think having enough of a fleshed out design to know what that number is important. It probably makes it, if we're going to lose parking spots, losing 3 parking spots is a lot different than losing 33 parking spots.
I think that will all be part of the traffic analysis. So that may not be part of you may not see a detailed design, but as I understand it, the traffic analysis will be able to tell us our parking spaces will reduce. If we do parallel parking, we'll lose 30% of the current spaces. So that information will be available. We actually provided that to folks as part of the process that we've just been through. We said if you choose parallel parking, that means a 30% reduction in parking spaces. And that was what people said. I think the other thing that the takeaway that we all have is that parking remains a serious problem. So if in fact we go to parallel parking on Middlefield Road, then we need to figure out some other alternative for parking in that area.
Okay. And of course, according to the timeline then, the first study session will be in July.
Right.
July 17th. So at that time, we will have all of the detail and the details of what you got back on the survey and more information. so that we can study that.
We
But we'll leave all that for that study session.
So what we will provide to you is a copy of this presentation, but more importantly, all the information that our summary of the community feedback so far. What you will get prior to that work group or that study session is some sort of report from the Public Works Department on the impacts on traffic and parking of the two different options.
Okay.
So you'll have that and have an opportunity to review it, and then they will do a presentation that will be available to the community as a whole.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Peggy. Any other questions? Yes.
I know that you're saying from the information you gave us that 49% is yes, 3 lane, and 41% 4 lanes. But this study is done from the public point of view. I would like to see a structure parking before this goes through, because if you were on Middlefield Road 7 days a week, from 9 to 9, you'll see that parking is a big problem.
We definitely heard that, and that certainly could be a recommendation from your council to the Board of Supervisors.
Because if you're going to go to 3 lines, it's going to reduce parking spaces both ways, and then bike lanes and all that, it adds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No. Yeah, that's the discussion that has to take
Right,
place,
yeah.
and think of the very best option for Middlefield Road.
Parking structure.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to getting the packet on the presentation, so we can actually spend some more time and go over all the information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Okay, that's it then. So next on the agenda is the LAFCO update. And is Martha actually here? Oh, Martha, I'm sorry. Didn't see you. I didn't see you back there. Okay. So if you'd like to go ahead and, we all got copies of your documents, so, but if you'd like to go ahead and give us some highlights of your feedback on the recommendations.
Thank you for entertaining LAFCO's comments. And this is about the recommendations that a subcommittee of the North Fair Oaks Council made on some improvements and programs that could be funded in North Fair Oaks. And one of the issues that needs to be addressed and the memo focuses on is that North Fair Oaks is also coterminous with a county-governed special district, which is County Service Area Number 8. And County Service Area Number 8, as explained in the memo, was formed initially in the smaller part, the part of North Fair Oaks that's between the Southern Pacific Tracks and 101. And it was formed because a fire district in 1972 was dissolved. The county formed CSA 8 in order to assess property owners and contract with City of Redwood City because the county did not have a fire station nearby. And it included only this area because the other side, between the Southern Pacific Tracks to El Camino of North Fair Oaks, is in the Menlo Park Fire Protection District. So you have two different forms of funding fire protection in North Fair Oaks. That was in 1972. In 1978, Prop 13 was passed by the voters in California, and what that did is it formalized the amount of property tax. It reduced the amount of property tax to all government agencies, but it formalized the amount of property tax that County Service Area Number 8, that was that smaller area, received. Later, in order to address garbage collection, County Service Area Number 8 was expanded to include all of North Fair Oaks. So you have basically a county service area that provides garbage collection in all of North Fair Oaks, and then a county service area that receives property tax in the area between 101 and Southern Pacific Tracks to fund fire protection. And because the amount that's collected exceeds the amount that's needed for the contract, there's a fund balance that's accrued. And so your subcommittee looked at, in response really to the Fair Oaks plan, North Fair Oaks plan, looked at a series of recommendations of needs that could be met in North Fair Oaks and made some recommendations that LAFCO has responded to in the memo that's dated May 19th. And so one of the things the memo explains is the fund balance that exists for CSA 8 in the fire zone is, it again clarifies that it's the product of property tax revenues just in the fire zone. And there's a table that's attached that was presented to the committee when the committee looked at these, considered different alternatives. The table is attached to the report. And it shows that for the 2012-2013 actual fiscal year, the annual revenues for the fire zone were $782,000 and the expenditures were $844,000. The spreadsheet that's attached shows what those expenditures were. They were not all for fire protection. And the reason for that is over the years when it was observed that the CSA 8 fire fund had excess revenues, there were other services that were identified that could be funded with the CSA 8 fire zone revenues. And those include the community center here. They include enhanced police protection. Those are the main expenditures. And it was seen that spending those funds CSA 8 wide were appropriate because they either directly or indirectly benefit the residents of the fire zone. The other balance, so that you have two segregated budgets. You have the budget of the CSA 8 fire zone, and then you have the budget of CSA 8 garbage and recycling collection. And in that case, the annual revenue for 13-14 was $1.3 million, and the expenditures were 1.5. So in both cases, there's a drawdown on the fund balance of both of those accounts. The recommendations that the subcommittee made included, that are being made to the full council, include funding a community education public awareness campaign to improve passive stormwater drainage measures. And so this is tied to the North Fair Oaks plan that identified the severe flooding that takes place in North Fair Oaks. And the reason there's flooding is that there's very limited infrastructure for storm drain. And so this recommendation, the comments from LAFCO are that if there's going to be spending from CSA 8 funds on storm drain, this is not an active service that's currently authorized for the district. And so the first step that would have to happen is that the Board of Supervisors would need to come to LAFCO to apply for activation of storm drain. And it would have to have a plan for service and show what services would be provided or what infrastructure would be provided and how it would be funded. And because some of the storm drain problems exist in the fire zone and some exist outside, LAFCO is suggesting that you would need to really look at some sort of proportional funding so that the CSA 8 fire zone money would be funding CSA 8 fire zone improvements, and you'd have to find a funding source for the area outside. There's also a recommendation for community education public awareness to address storm drain issues and compliance. And so one was actually just passive measures, so improvements in that area, and the other is education on compliance. And that recommendation for that, the LAFCO recommendation or comments on that recommendation are the same as the previous. There's a recommendation to fund inter-neighborhood street tree and mini park beautification. And this is actually determined to be an active service by CSA 8 because there are already landscape services being funded. But I do point out that, again, there should be some sort of proportional funding model where improvements that are made in the CS 8 fire zone would be funded with those funds, and improvements that are made in the Menlo Park Fire District or in the area not in the fire zone would have to have a different funding source. And I also point out that there's a county fund balance and reserve policy that says that fund balance shall be used for one-time expenditures. So you would need to look at the kinds of capital improvements that could be funded, and then if there's a ongoing maintenance cost, you would have to have another separate ongoing funding source for that. Also, there's a recommendation to fund educational outreach campaign regarding illegal dumping. Here, LAFCO really defers to the Public Works Department on whether, if this is a district-wide program that's related to the garbage, that actually be something that would come out of the garbage fund and not out of CSA 8 fire zone money, because there's a real nexus to your garbage rates. And then reallocation of funds for annual North Fair Oaks Middlefield Road Fair, and that's recommendation that it's from the committee, that it's not a priority program in the overall picture to improve North Fair Oaks. And there's a recommendation to reallocate approximately $20,000 budgeted from CSA 8 for this fair to support the community outreach work of the North Fair Oaks Community Council. And LAFCO really has no comments on that in terms of what the council might do with that recommendation. So LAFCO, as an independent commission, has authority over the boundaries of cities and special districts and also over activation of new services. So if it is determined in the course of North Fair Oaks Forward and the North Fair Oaks Plan and these recommendations that a new service that's not currently active under CSA 8 be activated, and the inventory of the active services is also attached to the memo. If there's a recommendation that a new service be activated, the state law requires that the Board of Supervisors, as the governing body of CSA 8, would apply to LAFCO to activate that service. And that application would have a plan for providing service, it would have a budget, it would have details on how services would be funded, how capital improvements would be funded. And that's where LAFCO would look very carefully at the notion of the source of the revenues and the situs, or the location of the services that are being funded. So there's, again, this suggestion of kind of a proportional funding in North Fair Oaks if some of the service, if it's a district-wide service, that some of the revenues would come out of CSA 8 fire zone money, if that's a surplus, and then there would have to be another source. Once LAFCO receives an application, we process it through a very public hearing process, and there's opportunity for input. And if approved, LAFCO can approve it with conditions, can deny it, can modify the application, and if approved, then LAFCO would send that resolution to the Board of Supervisors, and the board would be authorized to activate those new services. One of the things that is kind of mandatory for the commission is that state law states that the commission shall not approve an application for new service unless the commission determines the district will have sufficient revenues to provide the new service. Approval of the new service by the commission shall not be subject to an election unless the principal act requires it, and CSA 8 law does not require an election. So it wouldn't be as cumbersome a process, but there is, I think, this challenge of the funding sources and the fact that funding either new programs or new infrastructure for existing development means you have to find a new revenue source. And I also point out in the memo that it's also recommended that County Public Works, which administers CSA 8, be consulted as to how much of any of the fund balance is truly excess versus potentially needed for either an increase in the fire contract in the fire zone or some other demonstrated need in the fire zone, like some sort of storm drain emergency where that money could be made available for that purpose.
And Martha, do you budget ongoing maintenance also? For any of the services that have
if there's an activation of service,
identified ongoing maintenance, that's also in you're budgeted for that,
well,
correct?
The district's, the County Board of Supervisors application on behalf of CSA 8 would include a capital budget, and it would include an ongoing maintenance budget. So it's not LAFCO, but it's actually the Board of Supervisors as applicant for CSA 8.
Okay, I'm going to, at this point, let's see, I'm looking at our time here. We have, we're not taking, thank you, Martha, for the information, and we did get the packet. So at this time, I want to open it up for public comment, I believe, or questions rather. I still have a slip here. Janet, do you still wish to address on this topic? And then we take this to a study session, right? Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Jen.
I wrote you a memo about this, and in my opinion, the recommendations are just plain silly. They've looked at the money without thinking what actually they should have as a reserve. The recommendations are treating this money like it's a slush fund and you can spend it however you want, and that's not what Martha's memo is all about. Actually, several of these recommendations come down to a slush fund for the county manager. Education is not something, you need something that benefits the community. Education is useless. That's proved to be the case with the illegal dumping. That recommendation was just useless. And I think I agree with Martha's memo. She points out that first you need to know what you've got to spend, and you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You need a balance to, as a reserve. You can't just say, oh, we'll have $100,000 for community education on this, that, and the other. And for the mini park beautification project, that's a waste of money. The outreach for illegal dumping is a waste of money. The passive stormwater measures, that's ridiculous. For passive stormwater, you need swales and landscaping. In North Fair Oaks, there's no land for that. There's apartments and hardscape. This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I think that what Martha is saying basically is the same thing I'm saying, that you need to go back to square one and have some sensible suggestions.
Okay. Thank you, Janet. Yes, Martha.
I wanted to say, number one, I am a resident of North Fair Oaks. I live on 17th Avenue. And so I do think that, my memo was not intended to criticize the recommendations of the subcommittee. The subcommittee did focus on problems that were identified in the North Fair Oaks plan. I think that an inventory and more definition of what public education passive storm drain improvements might be, or storm runoff, the idea of impervious versus pervious landscaping, lots of concrete driveways, things like that could be avoided. And so I think, I didn't want to have the memo be perceived as a criticism of the recommendations.
No,
I think it was, I was
yeah.
participating in the committee meetings, and it was hard work, and it was long hours,
Right.
and it was thoughtful. So what I think, though, is that there are some opportunities. I think, for example, apartment owners don't get to know this, but property owners do, that there's 2 free cleanups a year with your garbage bill. And so if there were a way, perhaps, to just educate landlords that if they own rental property, perhaps they could coordinate this with their tenants. And so I think that the ideas are great. I think the challenge is that the use of the CSA 8 funds have some restrictions on them, and those just need to be addressed. And that was my intent with the memo.
Yes. Thank you, Martha. Yes, Laura.
So actually, I have a question. You might not want to
Go too far.
go too far. So first of all, I appreciate the report, and yes, this was a preliminary set of suggestions based on problems that had been identified in the North Fair Oaks plan, and part of why it was vague was that we wanted to run it by LAFCO initially before we got too far, and just to see if these ideas were something that was that were appropriate. And I do appreciate the information about the proportional funding. It was not clear totally if we could have, for example, an educational campaign that would address the entire community, but you're saying proportional funding even in that case would be necessary, and that's helpful information. I had a question about the reallocation of funds, item 5, and there was no comment. Is that because one of those is already active, but what about the other one, saying reallocate to improve and support the community outreach work? There was no comment on that either. For what reason?
Because it isn't drawing further on the CS8 funding. It's actually changing what's already been implemented by the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, so that's okay.
Well, I mean, again, the county council for the Public Works Department is who would really be opining on any actual plan and giving direction to the Public Works Director and to the Board of Supervisors on the actual plan for how the funding would be used and whether or not it's appropriate. But what I found with that recommendation was that it wasn't really increasing or changing anything, and it's not necessarily a new service that requires LAFCO comment.
Okay, and then thank you also for the information about, because we had wanted to find out, part of our dilemma was to try to get information about how much fund balance reserve is necessary. So you're saying Public Works can get that to us. So for our next steps, that's also helpful information. We'd like to go there and make sure we get that.
So, procedure-wise, the last study session where the CSA 8 committee met, I think we need to reconvene. I want to check with my fellow council members. In light of the report back from Martha, and in light of any new information that we've gotten, does the committee feel, or does the council feel that we should reconvene the CSA 8 committee? I think we do.
It sounds like
I think we need to.
Yeah,
Okay.
possibly reconvene, because
So
now
rather-
we have additional information.
Yeah.
We need to first get
It was kind of rushed.
Yeah.
information about the fund balance, and now we have your report.
It was. Right.
So, and just for history, because there was a comment about this all being frivolous, and back quite a while ago, I can't remember now, a couple of years ago maybe, it was requested of the council that we convene and study and take a look at what we might use some of these fund balances for to benefit the community. So this was not just looking to spend money, but it was requested that we try to find a way to benefit the community with what at that time was a significant reserve that was not being drawn down on. So yes, we need to look at all of that.
I think
So-
with all the new data that we have too, with the community meetings that we've been having, if that's okay with the groups, we can use some of that info that you guys have to not recreate the wheel, you know?
Well, we were, and I guess I'll defer to Peggy, we were on somewhat of a timeline.
Yeah.
So what does reconvening the committee do in regards to the Board of Supervisors getting a recommendation? That's
So
my
the Board of
question.
Supervisors is going to roll over their budget June 30th, which means we are on a 2-year budget cycle, so
Mhm.
everything that was adopted last year will just roll over in June.
Okay.
However, they're going to have budget hearings in September, so there is potentially an opportunity to make changes then.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Although, what I'd really suggest you do, because we're trying to move forward to this 2-year budget process, is be prepared by next March to have a detailed proposal for your CSA budget for any changes you'd like to make. I think that gives you enough time to really work through all the issues that Martha identified and also provide more detail in terms of specifically what you'd like to do. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much, Peggy. And I would invite anyone else from the community. Janet, you had a very long critique of the process. I invite you to join the committee. We are going to meet at the study session. I'm not sure if it's going to be it'll probably the June one. I don't know the date offhand. What is that, the third Thursday of the month? But I invite you and anyone interested in that and this particular topic to join us. The more minds that are together and coming up with their thoughts.
Into the agenda.
Oh,
The night.
thank you, Dale. Okay, thanks. All right, if there's no other questions in regards to this topic, I'm going to move ahead. We have some other things on the agenda we need to get to. Okay, so let's see, Manuel? you are going to present, do a presentation, and you work for the Sheriff's Department or City of Redwood City?
Both.
For both.
Once again, my name is Manuel Velarde, and
Okay.
I work for Redwood City Police, and I've been working for Redwood City Police for about 20 years now.
Okay.
And about 5 years ago, the sheriff asked me to work with the sheriff's office as a consultant and create the diversion, juvenile prevention, and early intervention services, and that's what I've been doing for the last probably 4.5, 5 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry if I'll tell you this ahead of time.
Sure.
You have about 20 minutes.
Oh, that's
So
more
I
than
know
enough.
it's a little bit less than what you were promised, but please bear with us. And you have the floor. Thank you.
Great, thanks. The presentation is about what the sheriff's office is offering to kids in the community in order to keep them basically outside the criminal justice system and also, obviously, outside the gang involvement. And what I prepared a basic diagram here that is going to help. I also have some for the public, if you don't mind. Thank you. The services that we provide are cost-effective, and they're cost-effective because we work in collaboration, and we work in collaboration with pretty much all of the services and agencies available in this area. One of the most important services that we offer right now for kids to keep them out of the system and also out of the gang involvement is what we call diversion. Diversion basically is a first-time offenders program. The way it works is any person under the age of 18 that commits a minor crime. By that I mean maybe getting into a fight, doing some petty theft, drinking, using small amounts of marijuana, or doing some type of vandalism. Rather than sending these kids to the criminal justice system, what we do is we give them a second chance. We ask them to be in informal supervision for 6 months, and if they follow all the new guidelines that we set for them, going to school every day, do your homework, don't leave your house without permission, attend some counseling if it's necessary. If you were involved in some type of drug activity, then we refer them to agencies here in the community that provide drug and alcohol services. If they are successful during the 6 months that we ask them to be on informal supervision, then these kids basically don't have any cases. They don't have any police records. That's extremely important, especially for minority kids when, we know that the large number of kids who end up in the criminal justice system. We also now have a lot of emphasis in telling parents to report their children when they don't know where they are. Gangs basically require you to be there. You cannot be a gang member unless you are with the gang members. So as long as parents know where the kids are, chances that the kids get involved in gangs are pretty minimal. That's why we're now training people in the community to make sure that they report when their kids are not at home, when they just leave their houses without permission. Another thing that we have implemented, and this is something that we just put together probably in the last 6 months, is a truancy abatement program, where the school resource, we have a school resource officers, deputies who basically work directly with the Fair Oaks School and also with Garfield School, and they work together with people from the school district to make sure that all of the kids attend school. In the city of Redwood City and also in the unincorporated area of Redwood City, throughout the day during school hours, every single kid who looks, under the age of 18 is going to be stopped by deputies, by police officers, and then if they are out of school, they're going to be brought back to the classes. The first time they're going to receive a warning. The second time they might receive a citation that requires them to go to juvenile hall, and some of these kids end up having trouble as delaying their driver license permit, things that usually will basically regain them, make them go back to school. The other thing that we have in terms of gang prevention, it's a very successful tattoo removal program. The program basically it's something that is provided by 5 different agencies: the Redwood City Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, the Probation Department, the Police Activities League, and the Sheriff's Activities League. The 5 agencies now provide free of charge tattoo removal services to all of the reformed gang members that basically have quit their gang affiliation. This also includes very young kids who at a very early age make the mistake of tattooing themselves with some needles, with a little ink. They start playing to be gang members. And we are also helping these type of kids, situations where we stop them from continuing their association. Two things that are extremely important in our interventions for gang prevention is the Sheriff's Activities League, SAL, and also the CARON program. All of our services are based on the trust that the community has to our services. So the SAL program and the CARON program help us to continue with the idea of doing the community policing in a very effective manner, helping everyone in the community. We are also very, very involved in doing gun prevention training, not only to parents in English and Spanish, but we also now are training different organizations, including local churches and places where people go. It's been proven now for many years of studies that gang members react extremely well when they are involved in some religious experience, religious organizations. We're using that. We're also training school officials. All of the people who from the schools receive training on what is new in gangs every 6 months, every year. We do a lot of gang prevention classes also with kids. Not only the classes, but we also have specific programs that are targeting now certain behaviors that at a very early age, if you don't correct that, we usually end up having some other, it will escalate to more serious behaviors. I'm specifically referring to bullying, for example. We have done presentations at Fair Oaks School and also with Garfield, teaching kids what is inappropriate behaviors in terms of bullying somebody, inappropriate touching, what means the inappropriate use of electronic devices. All of that is part of the services that we have that complement not only the training, working with the schools, the truancy abatement program, but pretty much everything else that we do. We also have a very close collaboration with the mental health services and the special education services. Kids who usually go to special education classes have a very difficult time in controlling their impulses. Sometimes these kids, are prime targets for gang members to recruit them because, they are sometimes, they have a very difficult time in trying to solve conflict without the use of violence. So we work in close collaboration with the special education services, with the mental health community, in order to make sure that kids who at a very early age start showing some of these type of behaviors, we provide something. We place them either on diversion, or we also use our own services. One of the boxes that we have here is that we have an internship program where students at the master level of San Francisco State University, from San Jose State University, and from Cal State East Bay, these students basically work as interns in our services, and basically they provide free of charge counseling, sometimes in English and Spanish also. So what we have is cost-effective. It incorporates different parts of the community, and we just don't focus in one specific behavior, but we believe that, gangs are not necessarily a problem that starts on the streets, but most of the time, these gangs start at home. They are the result of domestic violence, unreported sexual assaults, things that usually move a kid to actually move away from their families in order to look for a different situation, a different family on the streets. And that's why we have different components that basically touch different parts of the situation that some of the kids in this community experience. So that's my presentation, and we'd be happy to respond to some of the questions that you might have.
The one thing that I do not see on your chart is jobs, employment. I know a lot of kids get in trouble when they have a lot of time on their hands. So if they're not going to school or working or something, what are you doing in the area of helping the kids? Summer's coming, and kids want to make some money during the summer. What are you doing in that area?
We used to work with the vocational training schools years ago, when the economy was still okay. As a decline of the economy, we were not able to continue with that program. Now that things are looking much better, specifically the Caron program, now is providing some opportunities to kids from the community who want to get involved into classes that will prepare them to do something during the summer. The Caron program also is now talking to organizations that do the mentoring and also help with basic resume writing and things like that, and that will help some of the younger kids that we have. Your question is extremely important in the sense that, yeah, at some point the business community also probably is going to have to be part of what we have, because, yeah, we can, retrain the mentality of somebody who have lived, violence on the streets, and we can also erase some of these marks. But if by the end we cannot also offer some type of opportunity to make a decent living, working, then the program is not just 100%, effective. Sometimes in the past, when we have had the support from the business community, employers basically will hire some of the reform gang members that we have. They will select a particular employee that will mentor this reform gang member, and they will spend some extra time trying to train that person into what is the responsibility of 8 hours of work a day. They actually have reacted extremely well. We have people who have gone through our tattoo removal program that, believe it or not, are now teachers. Some of them became police officers. We have people who work at the San Mateo Credit Union, and I specifically mention some of these individuals because we use them to help us raise some money to buy a new laser machine. Our laser machine broke down about a year and a half ago, and we were able to fundraise about $145,000 to purchase a new machine. So the people who went through our program actually came back and help us in raising the money by presenting their success stories, and that's how we end up having this money. But you're right. At some point, the next step is to reconnect these individuals who have basically reformed and allow them to basically have a good opportunity to work in our communities.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, I just want to add one comment in terms of your question about the jobs thing. So right now, our office is actually working with Barbara Bonilla from Sal to kind of develop Jobs for You program for the summer. So that's something that we're working on. I know Supervisor Slocum is taking that into consideration to make a huge push for for Jobs for Youth for the summer and stuff like that. So that's just one thing in the works that our office, in collaboration with Barbara
So
Bonilla.
there's going to be a summer Jobs for Youth program? Is that what
We're
you're
working, yeah,
you're
we're working on that
one?
right now
Oh,
with
okay.
Barbara Bonilla from the Sheriff's Activities League.
Yeah, we
So-
need that. But absolutely, the merchants need to get in there and give these kids a chance, because I haven't looked at the law lately, but I believe someone can start working at 16, correct?
Yes.
With a work permit.
And
So, there's
most of this.
there's a lot of little jobs.
And the interesting thing is that a lot of these reform gang members, even though they have had a very violent past, they have learned how to survive, and they have learned how to be extremely effective in whatever they were doing. So when you have individuals who really are willing to use these, things that they have learned for good, not for the wrong reasons, they become pretty good employees. That's what the experience that most of the people that we have referred to agencies, the employers will tell us that they were pretty satisfied with the results.
Very good. We have some other questions
Go
from
ahead.
council.
Not really a question, but kind of like a suggestion. I used to work in Alameda County, and I worked with Hillary Bass. She runs a really good program with the sheriffs in the Ashland-Cherryland area. If you guys are looking into like the job relocation for youth and for adults, she has a really good model that I would encourage you to check out. I actually took the supervisor there on a tour a couple months ago, and I just want to bring that back up because I think it's coming up here. So I would highly encourage you to just talk to the supervisor about what's already being done in another county, and why not, pick up some things from it, because they got a really, really good program going on over there, and I could see it fitting into what we're doing here. Yeah.
I think we have a question here.
I work, is this on? Yes? Oh, okay. I work at both schools, Fair Oaks and Garfield, and my concern is when a family has been identified, what I know is that sometimes the interventions are not consistent, and so whatever happens in, like, say, elementary, when they go to middle school, for some, there happens to be a disconnect, because I sometimes see ex-students who have dropped out. And so my concern is what is started at the elementary level needs to continue, and what does that look like in reality, as far as what type of mentoring, intervention, and to make sure that family has the support they need, and that student is successful, especially when they're exiting elementary, going on to middle school, exiting middle school, going on to high school.
You're absolutely right. A perfect example of what you're saying and how we have changed the way we were providing services is the truancy abatement program. For many years, we waited until a student was about 11, 12, 13, 14 in order to make sure that now the incredible number of unexcused absences, well, then at that point somebody will do something. What we do now, we're going back all the way up to first, second, and third grade. And the school districts, specifically the Redwood City School District now, have implemented several steps that they take before contacting the sheriff's office. So the schools now keep track of pretty much all of the kids. They have the daily attendance is recorded, and then when they see that there is some warning signs, some flags or some red flags in any one of the students, then the school district will make an effort to send a first letter, a second letter, and then continue increasing the amount of either home visits if things are not fixed. At one point, they also request assistance from the sheriff's office. And then a deputy will go to the house and take a look at what is the situation. I mean, is this kid not going to school because he or she doesn't want to do it, or is it because the parents are neglecting his or her education? And then at one point, if things don't improve or change, we also incorporate child protective services. Now, all of these things are done basically with all of the students, and the ones who really do not seem to improve their attendance are then referred to something that is called the Student Attendance Review Board, SARB. It's a SARB meeting where people from different agencies, and the sheriff's office has a representative there. Then we explore why the particular student doesn't continue going to classes, is not doing homework. So we're doing exactly what you were saying. We're not waiting anymore. We're doing the services at a very early age.
Another comment, when the sheriff resource officer is at the school, I noticed that the meetings that are held, are they just for parents? Because I never get notification that I can, attend. And I would like more, like you said, lots of information that has come down the pike in the more recent years. I haven't been, invited. So I'm not like with the latest, when I used to attend them, that was 5 years ago. But everything, there's more information, there's newer things, and I'm not abreast of it. And I'm part of that school community. So my suggestion is that when there are meetings held for information for the parents, please make sure that those of us that work at the schools are also invited.
Absolutely. Most of the time, the parents-teacher associations, the PTA, will advertise it, or there are also specific groups like ELAC, the group for the Spanish-speaking parents. But yeah, it's a great idea that we should, advertise even more in terms of bringing people from the school also that, are to participate.
Because back in the days, when the sheriffs started having these community meetings, there was a nice balance of parents and employees and teachers. So because we all are working with those students, and so it's good for us to get together to receive this information and also, have that opportunity to talk amongst ourselves about how to do things better for the students that we serve.
And I think that our services have really improved the quality of living in the community. The numbers for kids who are now missing classes have really, truly declined.
Absolutely.
Just to give you an idea on how successful, for example, the truancy abatement program is, the first letter that the school district will send to the parents, last year I believe that there were about 1,200 letters that were sent for kids who have excessive number of either tardiness or unexcused absences. If it wasn't corrected, then a second letter is sent. The first one was about 1,200, 1,300 letters. The second letter was only no more than 200. So the difference is just, it's huge. I mean, parents sometimes don't understand that 2 days here, 3 days there, 4 days, on a vacation in Disneyland and all of that. When you start adding all these, absences together, now you end up with 30, 40, 50. So to remind the parents when the problem is starting seems to be very effective. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No. Manuel, Espy, excuse me.
Yes, I appreciate the help you're doing for the kids, but I'm concerned that you're saying that you've been working on the prevention program for a few years now, but it seems like there's more kids at younger ages are starting selling drugs or doing drugs. I just heard last week that on Garfield School there were kids, 7th and 8th graders, passing brownies. Now, I mean, it seems like the prevention program is not working. Free tattoo removal, free education classes, free, everything's free. Children do not appreciate the value of education. So it's got to be another way of you guys having control for all those kids that are getting out of the system. It's getting worse. Go to Pacific Avenue. They're offering they go like this. So that means obviously selling drugs or passing the bucket or wherever. I don't know what terms do they use. I mean, and there's young kids, 8, 10 years old kids.
In response to what you're saying, which is true, the way we deal with situations like that is a kid is bringing, let's say, a marijuana brownie and share some of that with some of the other classmates. It doesn't necessarily is selling the drugs or anything like that. And this is a 10, 11-year-old person. So what we do is basically we will place the individuals involved in that incident in our diversion program. If some of these kids have already started experimenting with other drugs or with alcohol, then they will go into the drug and alcohol counseling services, and it's mandatory. And during the program, the kids are drug tested, and these kids, if they don't change the behavior, if they continue escalating, their bad behavior, then they will experience other type of consequences. So in terms of preventing that no kid will commit a minor crime or doing something on the school grounds is almost impossible. But what we can guarantee you is that we will do something the moment that an incident like that happens, and we will provide services, and we will make sure that these kids get a second chance with also some very specific consequences and services that apply in order to change the behavior.
Just a follow-up question. So that situation happens. Is the principal going to call you or going to call the sheriff or call both of you?
The way it works is a principal will make a decision when to contact the sheriff's office. For example, in a situation like that, a principal might decide to call the sheriff's office to create a report, a police report basically, or handle that situation internally. If they decide to call the sheriff's office, then one of the deputies, very likely the school resort deputy, will show up at the school, will do an initial investigation, will write a JCR, a juvenile contact report, basically describing everything that would happen. And at that point, that case is sent to our juvenile detective. The juvenile detective, in turn, then will make an assessment of the situation, and if that kid qualifies for the program, basically that doesn't have any prior records, that the kid, shows some type of remorse, that the kid basically takes some responsibility for whatever he or she did, then that case is sent to our diversion unit. And then that kid then in turn is placed on the services that we have. So it's not guaranteed that a kid who commit a minor crime will just simply get the services, because there's some conditions. I mean, you cannot just keep making mistakes, the same mistakes over and over. So the diversion program works once in a lifetime, basically. You get diversion, just one time. And then if you're successful, then that basically will help you throughout your life, because you have learned the lesson, but you cannot be placed on diversion multiple times, because that will also send the wrong message.
Okay. No, we have to move forward. Yeah. Manuel, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you actually, Manuel, did you bring business cards? Can you maybe just leave them here, or thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to the final agenda item, proposed ordinance regulating smoking in multi-unit residences. And Edith, hi Edith, you're going to make a presentation.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is Edith Kabuslai. I work for the San Mateo County Health System in the Family Health Division. You have the memo with you, as well as a copy of the draft ordinance, so I will go through, for the members of the public who might not have had a chance to review, I will go through this presentation pretty quickly, but everything that you see on this presentation you would have seen in the memo in the ordinance. So why smoke-free housing? There's overwhelming evidence that secondhand smoke harms people, and that people who live in multi-unit housing facilities are exposed to secondhand smoke when someone in the adjoining or in the apartment or townhouse below or above are smoking. Also, smoking within multi-unit housing facilities are the highest number of calls that our tobacco prevention program gets when people are calling to complain about tobacco use in San Mateo County. So when we do get these calls complaining about secondhand smoke in their homes, we have a program that we put into place where we contact the people involved. We do education. We encourage them to talk to each other. We encourage them to document and to talk to landlords and talk to city council or board of supervisors as appropriate. And so there are already several communities in San Mateo County that have multi-unit housing policies. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors has implemented a policy around common areas, smoke-free common areas. Belmont, the city has an ordinance that has a comprehensive smoke-free multi-unit housing aspect. Also, there are many voluntary policies that many landlords who operate multi-unit housing facilities already have in place in our communities. And Menlo Park has passed a policy around common areas also, and Daly City most recently has passed a comprehensive multi-unit housing policy. Throughout the state of California, there are many of these policies that already exist. And so the purpose of this ordinance essentially would be to protect residents from secondhand smoke in multi-unit housing facilities. And a very broad overview would be that smoking in multi-unit housing units would be prohibited in unincorporated areas of San Mateo County, as well as any owned or leased buildings operated by San Mateo County, wherever those might be located. This would apply to facilities that have 2 or more units that would share at least one wall, floor, or ceiling, as well as ventilation. And this ordinance would include electronic tobacco products such as e-cigarettes and e-hookah. Some of the exceptions to this ordinance would be that it does not apply to hotels or motels, residential care facilities, assisted living facilities, detached single-family homes, or detached single-family homes with detached or attached in-law or second units. This ordinance also would not apply to medical marijuana because there are separate laws that address those. And landlords or operators of multi-unit housing facilities can designate smoking areas as long as those smoking areas meet very specific guidelines, such as being at least 30 feet away from an operable door, window, or ventilation. And they would be clearly delineated with signs, and that the operator of the multi-unit housing facility would make sure that it is free of tobacco-related litter. Additional information: no smoking signs would be posted on the buildings. Also, the operators would be required to include language related to this law in their lease, and it would be for new leases, renewed leases, or continued month to month after the effective date of the policy. The enforcement would be conducted by law enforcement agency or the San Mateo County Health System. And this would go into effect 30 days after the ordinance is adopted by the Board of Supervisors, with existing units going smoke-free 14 months afterwards. And who will be affected? And this slide essentially shows you that of all the units that would be affected in unincorporated area of San Mateo County, close to 70% would be in the North Fair Oaks area of San Mateo County. And that is my contact information if anyone has any questions or comments. So I'm happy to take any questions or statements from the council.
Okay. What sanctions would it be for the ones who don't obey?
So there's an enforcement outline essentially. That would be the first violation would be $100, and then so it goes up for every violation within a 1-year period, and then additional violations within a short period of time would become more serious offense.
I have a question. Could I see that slide again about who would be affected? That I got the first one, and then you were talking.
This one?
So,
It's on page 9.
okay, I was
No.
looking for it.
So if you take a look at here, there are a total of 1,250 units that would be affected, and of those, 849 are in the North Fair Oaks area.
849, wow. I had, any other questions? No? It prohibits smoking in all units, including decks and patios. Don't most people go out to smoke on decks and patios, though?
They do, and what
So if it's 30 feet, or I don't quite understand that.
So what research has shown is that when people go out to their decks and patios, that air comes right back into the units and into neighboring units. And what we really would like to see happen is for people who are within those units to be protected from secondhand smoke, so that there could be designated smoking areas, but they would have to make sure that they were far away from where they're likely to enter into a unit easily.
You had said, this says the multi-unit housing facilities with 4 or more units, and you had said 2 or more.
So this ordinance, thank you for asking that question. So this ordinance would impact facilities that have 2 or more units. However, San Mateo County only has access to facilities that have 4 or more units, because facilities that have less than that have many different complicated designations that could affect them, and so that information is not as readily available to us.
Okay, the information, but it would still
Correct,
affect
correct.
them.
But it would still affect units that have 2 or more. Facilities that have 2 or more units, I should say. Thank you.
Will this ordinance be included for landowners to homeowners or duplex owners to put this into their lease agreements for tenants?
Yes, if they have tenants, yes.
All right.
If I could just say a word to that. I'm John Niblin. I'm with the Office of County Counsel, and we've been working really closely to help draft this. So the ordinance actually requires that leases include these provisions, so that leases after the effective date would have to, in order to be in compliance with the ordinance, include language that essentially embodies these things. But even if the lease doesn't, it's implied by law into any lease. So even if the lease doesn't include the language, it nevertheless becomes a term of the lease by operation of the ordinance itself.
Because there may not be a lease.
Quite possibly.
Any provision for educating where there are no leases, just a month to month?
Not in the ordinance itself. I think the health system probably has a pretty good plan as to how they're going to get the information out.
So our plan, if this ordinance goes into effect, would be to go into a process of educating the community through various means, and we would seek advice from your council on the best way to be able to reach, since close to 70% of the units would be in this area. We would be spending a good amount of resources in this area, making sure that people know about this. So we're not likely to be able to find every single person, but we would find ways, different methods to be able to reach as many people as possible.
That's really good. That seems to be one of the issues when we had a community meeting last year, or a couple months ago, I believe. I don't know how many months ago, but it was a major concern for tenants of a certain facility that had marijuana smoke going through their walls, and students of mine were being affected. So, thank you.
But this is exempt from medical marijuana. So if somebody has,
Well, they were talking about cigarette smoke, those.
You were at the meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember them talking about.
yeah, but if your neighbor has
It goes through.
a permit or whatever to, smoke, for medical reasons, too bad for the other person on the other side, right? I mean,
That is true.
you
That's
can't,
the-
you can't
Is that what it
control
says?
that. You can't control that.
That is true. To the extent that somebody is,
Yeah.
to the extent that somebody is using marijuana pursuant to the California law that authorizes it, it's in fact
Right.
exempt from the terms of this ordinance. And we, as we were drafting this and working in collaboration with the decision makers who were sort of helping to frame it, I mean, we were making various looking at a lot of other jurisdictions and how they dealt with issues that included, as you were hearing earlier, the possibility of preemption, which is to say, are we going to run up against state law that mandates or allows for the use of medical marijuana? It's just sort of a policy judgment that needed to be made in the context of putting this together, recognizing that different people could come out different ways on that.
How do you monitor if it's medical, as far as say, can you put them in a different location of a building where kids are located? How can we make this better, as opposed to just saying it's okay if it's medically okay?
Well, as a legal proposition, the fact that you're not in violation of the ordinance doesn't necessarily mean that you're free and clear vis-a-vis your landlord and your lease and, creating nuisances for other people. You might be acting completely consistently with our ordinance by smoking marijuana medically, but that doesn't mean necessarily that your neighbor doesn't have a legitimate beef against you. I'm just kind of speculating right now, but that would be, I guess, the analysis. We're not saying that you can harass your neighbor. We're not saying by way of this ordinance that you're necessarily able to smoke at all in your unit. We're just saying you're not in violation of the ordinance if it's medical marijuana.
Okay, any other questions about this? Council? No? Does council have enough information to motion to accept the recommendation?
I'll motion that we support the ordinance as written.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion to support the ordinance?
I would second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Council has approved the recommendation for smoke-free multi-unit housing ordinance. Thank you very much, Edith. That takes us to the end of our meeting, and wow, look at, we got through it. So if I could have a motion, please, to adjourn.
I would move that we adjourn, Linda.
Okay, and a second to the motion, please.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.